So this is the brand new ASUS OC Dual RTX 4060. It's retailing for $299, which is the exact same price as the RTX 2060 and 3060 when it first launched many years ago. Whether it remains at $299 is a totally different story. Usually launch price is always lower than retail, and based on the prices of previous generation cards, I highly doubt it's gonna stay at $299. It's probably gonna be a bit more expensive. Either way, I don't think you're gonna have an issue picking one up. Right now, GPU sales are at its lowest in over a decade, and there is tons of supply to choose from. We have the 4060 Ti, which is heftier. It just feels like a more solid product, a little bit taller. And then you have this big boy over here, which is an RTX 4080. And that's not even the biggest card in NVIDIA stack. Like I have an RTX 4090 card at home, and it's bigger than this guy. It feels almost comical picking this up, you know, like it's plastic around here. There's a lot of space inside. It's super light. Like if you're planning on building a small form factor system, you're gonna love this size overall. Now, what really appealed to me about this card was its TGP. Like this is a 115 watt TGP. Like that is very low when you compare it to the other cards that NVIDIA currently offers. The 4060 Ti, I think, is 160 watts. And then if you go to 4070, 4080, 4090, it just gets significantly higher. The good news though is that you don't need any fancy schmancy power cable to connect to this. Like you can just use a regular 8-pin cable, connect to the GPU, and you're good to go. Like you don't have to worry about any fire issues. It's gonna work when you plug it in. Top is plastic, it has 2 fans. This ASUS card does have a little switch over here that lets you go between quiet and performance. All my tests were done in performance mode, and quite frankly, I barely heard the card. So I don't ever think you need to put it on Q if you want a more silent experience. Now my test bench is an i9 13900K CPU with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM and of course an RTX 4060. The ports on this guy are actually pretty good. You have 3 display ports, an HDMI port, and when I was looking at this TGP of 115 watts, I'm like, this has to be as fast as my laptop RTX 4060 because I have a bunch of 4060 laptops here that range from 120 watts for the RTX 4060 all the way up to 140 watts. Because usually when you buy a laptop, you're sacrificing performance to be in a smaller form factor so that you can take it places with you. And always, like always in history, the desktop version of that laptop GPU was always faster, but not with this card. This card's 115 watt TGP, and if you buy a 140 watt laptop, you're getting the exact same performance. I tested 1080p gaming between 5 to 6 different games, and they were trading blows back and forth. Frame rates were anywhere from 1 to 3 FPS difference. It doesn't matter what game I tested, the difference was so minor. Sometimes the laptops were faster, sometimes the desktop GPU was faster, but there's really no difference at all. The only thing that I can say is if you are buying an RTX 4060 laptop that's around 120 watts or lower, there will be a difference, but again, we're talking like 5 to 8 frames rather than 1 to 2. So you're still getting pretty close performance for an RTX 4060, but there will be a difference. But any laptop that you buy with a 140 watt RTX 4060, the performance will be identical to this desktop version. And this holds true regardless of whether you're gaming at 1080p or QHD or even 4K. And this card is definitely not meant for 4K. Like there are some optimized titles you can get away with. QHD you can definitely do as long as it's a title that's a little bit older. So like if you're playing games like Overwatch or even Diablo 4, which is obviously newer, but it's just very well optimized. One thing that completely blew me away though is the DLSS performance. Like this is obviously using the newer version of it, DLSS 3. And depending on the title, you can see a drastic difference. Now, if you're a huge Diablo fan, I highly recommend turning on DLSS 3 if you have a 40 series card. I tried this at 1080p and I was getting 153 frames per second with the settings maxed out. That's really good. Like Diablo is super efficient. But I turned on DLSS 3 and that got bumped up to 230 frames per second. That's an 80 FPS difference. That's absolutely massive, especially on a card like this. So as long as newer titles are incorporating this technology, you will see a benefit by turning it on. But the point of this video is to say that there's finally a GPU out there in a laptop that matches its desktop counterpart. And if your budget is in the 4060 range and you're unsure of building a PC, which technically will still be cheaper, or buying a laptop that's a bit more portable, you can finally get the exact same performance. Now, obviously this is not going to translate across the board. you buy an RTX 4080 laptop or a 4090, it's not gonna match the desktop version. Those desktop GPUs are using a lot more power and can push a lot more frame rates. Either way, I truly hope vendors price this at $299 because I think at that price point, it's a fair option. But if it starts going $250 to $280, then it starts to become a little bit too expensive for most people. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people with 1060s, 2060s, and maybe even 3060s are gonna be looking at this card as a potential upgrade. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.